Good afternoon and welcome to You and Your Business with me, Alec, on 103.2 Dublin City FM. Each week, I invite an expert from the world of business to share their knowledge, insights and tips to help you with your business challenges. If there's a topic you would like covered or if you feel you can make a contribution, please email me at yourbusiness@dublincityfm.ie and perhaps we'll be having a chat here one day soon. My guest today is co-founder of the world's first anti-agency, letsrocc. He has pioneered digital marketing strategy for more than 27 years, and he's worked in multiple industries in 4 countries over 4 decades. I'm delighted to welcome Chris Wheeler to the You and Your Business studio. Hiya, Chris.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, great to have you here, Chris. I'm going to take you back to your last year in school. Were you the academic? Were you the sports person? Were you the person who just wanted to see the world? What was going through your mind back then?
Well, I was very sporty. I played rugby at school, but actually academia was not my strong point. I'd moved schools when I was 14 through my father's job. And so I'd had a transitional period. And obviously then bedding into the new school was quite hard at 14 when you already started, the preparation for exams. Sure. And I wasn't particularly academic. Music and girls were my thing. I didn't buckle down and study at school. So in those days we had careers teachers or careers advisors, and the advice that we were given was you go on the dole, you go in the military, or you go to jail, and that was Mrs.
All right, that's a bit of a Hobson's choice job. So
yeah,
where did you head off to? I'm presuming not prison now.
No, after a while I headed to the military and spent 2.5 years in the military before realizing that wasn't the career that I wanted, and I bailed myself out at quite a price.
So you found yourself back in Civvy Street, so you hadn't been tainted too much with regimentation.
No, I was a junior officer trainee, the regimentation definitely from the top, but ultimately I was supposed to be the guy that was leading, so I guess I was responsible for a bit of regimentation.
Sure. I mean, for a lot of people who are in the military, they have experiences which, kind of stay with them. Did you unfortunately find yourself in action anywhere? Don't have to go into details about where, but was it part of your life?
Yeah, I did. I had a couple of tours which were not very pretty, and where I learned a lot about myself and my strengths and weaknesses. And it certainly was a different kind of an education.
Sure, I'd say it was, and certainly let's not dwell upon it. Okay,
No.
So you've got yourself out into Civvy Street.
Yes.
What's sort of on your mind? What are you going to do? Or are you going to have to take some time out?
Yeah, I took some time out, and then I thought I wanted to go into management because I was always earmarked at school as being somebody that could lead. And obviously the military sort of progressed that. So I actually applied for a job as a trainee manager at our local Tesco that was opening up in Hertfordshire. And unfortunately, the jobs had gone for trainee managers at that point. I was too late. And so the next best thing was actually to be offered a role as a cleaner. And actually, taking a step back, I needed to do something that was more mundane without leadership, and that I could still take pride in and do efficiently, but didn't require a lot of brain work.
Yeah, so no responsibility, but a wage packet at the end of the week.
Exactly right. Yeah, the easy life. Maybe.
Yeah, you can get lost in your own mind.
Exactly.
Sometimes we all need a bit of that, I think.
We sometimes do.
All right, so you're going to spend a short time there, and then to move on to something else. What was on your mind, or where were you going to go?
Yeah, so my people in careers at school and heads of department always said that I was a good communicator and that I would be good in sales, and a natural salesman, whatever that is. So a job vacancy came up at a company called International Computers, which were the UK version of IBM, as a telesales person in a team proactively selling ICL products. And I went from being a telesales person to being a telesales manager in 6 months.
All right, very good. How did you find the whole telesales thing? Because it's quite demanding, but you're getting to meet people and.
Yeah, I mean, we had a proactive telesales team and a reactive telesales team, and my team were proactive. So what that meant was basically we went to people that had ICL products, printers, that kind of thing,
Sure.
and tried to sell them on ICL branded products, which was quite hard because ICL branded products, like all branded products, were about 3 times more expensive than the knockoff versions.
Tell me, in terms of, like, okay, you're into upselling there with people. Was there any sort of sales training put in place to support you?
Yeah, I did an Institute of Marketing Telesales Techniques training course when I started there, and then I did a telesales management training course in Cookham in Berkshire.
How did you find those?
Really good, actually. Yeah, I mean, what telesales teaches you is resilience, definitely.
Sure.
And in terms of, meeting people, it was a wide and varied bunch of clientele, and equally, I actually had control of 100 telesales ladies, all ladies, and all older than me. So it actually gave me an education there too.
I'd say it did, but we won't go into that on the air either.
Oh, indeed.
So how long were you going to spend time there? And obviously you're going to move on again.
Yeah, so I worked for a contractor into ICL, and this company lost the contract, and as a result of that, we were offered either to go and work for ICL, which would have been at a reduced salary, or move on with their blessing. So I decided that I was interested in automatic identification and barcoding, which was still reasonably in its infancy, and as a consequence, ICL helped me with giving me time to go and look around to find a suitable job, and I got into a company that was involved in building specialist barcode software for retail and thermal transfer printing systems.
It's interesting, like, a lot of people see barcodes. I mean, we see them every day of the week, but there's a whole world out there in terms of it.
There certainly is, and when you're in it, if you're excited by the technology, which I was, you bore your wife or your partner to death, because you walk around B&Q looking at which barcode is this, and then obviously looking at should you contact this company for business, and all. It gets a bit obsessive.
Yeah, there we go. And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my guest today is Chris Wheeler. And he was just talking about how he could bore everybody to death talking about barcodes. Fantastic. That must have been a great chat up line.
Yeah, not quite.
But you had sort of more of an interest in the technology around this, like about building systems. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, the barcoding, desktop barcoding, was very basic in terms of packaging, for example, on multiple cartons for fresh produce. And there's not a lot of excitement in that. And what I was interested in doing was taking the software and developing the software into more, I guess, unique packages for end-of-line applications and what we call print and apply systems. So the printer is on the end of the line, and it prints, and then it applies to the particular container.
Just out of curiosity, how long have barcodes been with us? Are they?
Now you're asking. I'm kind of remembering 1975, but it could be sooner than that.
Right, my goodness, it's an amazing concept. Whoever came up with it, that
really,
look at the volume of products around the world, and they can still put a barcode on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this time, my company was involved in looking at what we call 2D barcoding, which you probably now know as a QR code. And we were looking at that for the UK government for identification of people.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, like a personal ID card.
Right. Okay.
Privacy. People decided that wasn't a good idea, but we spent a long time testing that.
Just out of curiosity, you may or may not be able to answer it. Why was there sort of some is done with QR codes and other things are done with barcode? What was there? Are you aware of any rationale behind that?
Yeah, so the barcode typically is a one-dimensional thing. So it's made up of a sequence of numbers that are if you're talking about retail barcodes, you'll see what we call an EAN barcode, and the EAN barcode is either 8 or 13 digits.
Sure.
And it comprises of the weight of the product, the price, and a unique serial code that's given to it by what was the Article Numbering Association. So it's a very flat thing, and all it can read is numbers, whereas
Right.
a QR code can read photos, data, and lots of pieces of information. So it's obviously you can open it with your camera, and you can't do that with a barcode.
There we go. I've learned something already today. So it's just out of curiosity. So, okay, you did some work with the Clondalkin group.
I did.
And maybe just talk for a minute about that, and then where you moved on to.
So the Clondalkin group had a division in UK called Boxes, and there were various components of that: manufacturing cartons, self-adhesive pre-printed labels, and patient information leaflets and things for the healthcare industry.
Sure.
And I started there effectively as sales and marketing manager, and then became commercial manager, and then commercial director for the labeling division.
Right. Of course.
And I was sorry. Yeah, I was the youngest commercial director at 24.
Oh wow! Oh, fantastic. Of course, there was a lot of movement in that whole sector at the time, so hence you were able to start moving around.
Yeah.
So you moved on again.
Yeah, it got very political, and I was often in board meetings with older guys smoking big cigars in Savile Row suits, and talking about how wonderful business was, but actually not generating anything themselves. And it got very political, as these things do. And I decided, being an arrogant 24-year-old with confidence and everything else, that I could do it myself, or actually go back to my first love, which was thermal transfer printing. And me and a colleague set up a business over an Indian TV repair shop in Milton Keynes.
No, it's not quite the sort of glass-fronted office block we see.
No, it was
Canary Wharf.
No, it was about 3 meters square, and no windows, and a table and a fax phone, and between the two of us, and that was it.
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people don't realize the world of the entrepreneur and the things we do to get a business running. So how did that work out for you?
It was good. I mean, I had, at this time I was already married, and I'd had my first child. We'd had our first child, and there was pressure because I had a mortgage, and the mortgage rates were very high in the UK at that point. And I went to my bank and said, "This is what I want to do, and I've got no real capital. I've got a few months' wages that I took from Clondalkin, and will you support me?" And luckily they said, "We'll give you 6 months, and if you don't do it in 6 months, then we're going to look at taking your house." Right. So it was kind of sink or swim, and luckily we swam, and some of my older contacts that I had came on board, and we grew to just over $1 million in 12 months, and moved up to Manchester.
Right. Okay. So Manchester, how did you manage that? Was it good?
Yeah, it was all right until I realized that when I went to look at the office, which was in a friend's label factory, that when I opened the door, the shutter blinds, I saw "Welcome to Manchester United" out my window, and as a Liverpool fan, that wasn't very pleasing.
Beautiful. The irony of it.
But apart from that, no, it was a very good experience. And again, we grew the business quite rapidly. And as a result of that, we moved to even bigger offices up in Chorley, at what was the Royal Ordnance Factory in Chorley.
Right. Okay. So, okay, the business is running.
Yep.
What's next on your tour?
Well, the business was growing very rapidly, and we were doing a lot of business with parties in Europe that were either label manufacturers or were offering some kind of manufacturing service, and then they were offering either thermal transfer printers or consumables as an add-on. That meant I was traveling an awful lot around Europe, probably doing about 70,000 kilometers a year, something like that. and obviously missing my children and family life. So after a period of maybe 6 or 7 years, I had a conversation with my business partner and said, look, this is not working. We either go to end users because our margins were being squeezed by our distributors,
Sure, yeah.
or resellers, or something needs to give. And he said, well, he wanted to continue with the reseller program.
Right.
And a lady that was working for us as our accounts manager offered to buy my shares in the company, and she bought me out.
Oh, fantastic. That was a great opportunity.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was good for everybody, and she's thriving in the business still, so it's very good.
Excellent. And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my guest today is Chris Wheeler. Okay, so you've now got to a point where you've just been bought out of the business, but you're still going to be looking for a job or to do something.
Yeah, so my business partner and I talked about, the fact that I wanted to do more consulting work. And also by this point, I built my first website, which was in 1996 in CompuServe, if you remember that.
I do.
And I got a leaning much more towards the marketing side of the business. I think by that point, I'd actually built 2 websites for the company. And we didn't have Google, and I taught myself how to optimize a website and how to get some traction on it.
Wow, that must have been interesting back then.
Yeah, it really was, because certainly in the packaging industry, it was a very male-dominated industry at this point. There were very few ladies in it, and there was no guidance in terms of, we had a couple of search engines, one called Dogpile, one called Alta Vista, and a couple of others, like Microsoft, MSN, and Yahoo were there, but the information was not great, and the engines weren't great, and so you had to kind of figure it out for yourself. And we were all experimenting with, putting these things like XXX and God knows what in the back of the code of the website, in the hope that a guy was going to search that and find our barcode systems, which was totally naive and totally stupid, obviously.
Yeah, well, listen, you have to try, and in a market that's not been tested, XXX is as good as anything else to try out.
Luckily, we've evolved from there.
Thank you. Yeah, nice, thankfully. So what was next happening with you?
From there, I moved down to the south. I had a former colleague at Clondalkin who had a web marketing business, and had told me that it was wonderful and he always wanted to work with me, and we were kind of like a brotherhood. He was actually godfather to my eldest daughter. Right. And we had maybe a 2-year period of talking about it and what we were going to do and how we were going to plan it and how I was going to come into the business. And eventually we took the plunge. We got rid of my office in Darwin in Lancashire that I had, and sold my house in Preston, and moved everything lock, stock and barrel, kids out of school, moved back down to sunny Norfolk.
Right. How did that work out for you?
At first it was okay, but what happened was that the day that actually we were leaving and the removal van arrived, my friend's girlfriend and my wife had a conversation, and she mentioned in the conversation that this guy had been bankrupt, and obviously that set alarm bells ringing like you wouldn't believe with my wife. She's on the phone to me, what's going on? We're packed and ready to go, and now we find out this guy is actually bankrupt. And so obviously I had a very quick conversation with him, and he explained that he'd run into some trouble, and these things happen in business. We sometimes have to have a failure in order to achieve real success, I think.
Yeah, okay.
But, I took him at face value because I'd known him an awful long time. Came down to find out that he had no money, and we had no office, and effectively I was going to be the bankroll, and my good name in terms of my bank in Lancashire was going to be used in order that we could get a line of credit and get the business going, which was very difficult, very difficult.
Wow. I mean, that must have been a difficult time to manage.
It was a difficult time to manage, and obviously there was an impact on my family. My eldest daughter at that point would have been 12, and obviously there were various conversations in our house about, what was going to happen. And, we'd taken on a big mortgage on a big house down south. So, there were lots of pressures, but ultimately it was like, okay, well, let's just move on. And I'm pretty resilient, or at least I was then. And we just got on with it. And so we started the business, started getting some clients, actually global clients that I picked up. And we started growing the business.
All right. What next?
Well, through a series of events that kind of pricked my attention to what might be happening while I was going out looking after these clients, it transpired that my business partner was actually creaming money off the top of the company and double invoicing. And one day found out that he'd actually taken about 200,000 euro of my money out of the business. And you could say I was naive and stupid because I should have kept an eye on it. But when you trust somebody in business, it's very difficult to think bad of them. And it was my first kind of bad business experience, and it left a lasting impression.
No, I'd say it did.
Yeah.
But as you said, we talk about resilience, and you're going to have to move on from that.
Yeah.
Is he still at Her Majesty's pleasure, or is he?
He was last time I heard. Yes, he actually bizarrely went into the building industry, and a friend of mine sent me a press cutting to say that he ripped off little old ladies with conservatories, and he'd been caught out finally.
Wow. Isn't it amazing? All right, well, listen. Anyway, so I mean, that's a real knockback, not just financially, but in terms of trusting people. You'll probably never have the same trusting relationship with somebody again.
No, it's a very bitter pill to swallow, and hard for everybody, not least my wife and children at the time.
Sure. However, there was a shining light that came out of it.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. One of my clients was a sign making company that had a business across the road from where we had our office, and we had a photographic studio as well. And the owner of the business said, came to me and said, "Has this guy gone?" And I said, "Yeah, he's cleared out." And he said, "Well, we thought you knew all about him, but people around the area definitely know all about him." And his bankruptcy had obviously been publicised in the local press, which clearly I wouldn't have seen in Lancashire. And cut a long story short, they gave me an office free of charge with my colleague that was working with me, and a real boost in terms of, you scratch my back with business and help us with our marketing, and we'll give you an office for as long as you need and the support that you want. And they were brilliant. Really good.
Well, it's nice to see that, to have some trust reestablished, that there are
Absolutely
people out there,
Absolutely. And that really was the catalyst, excuse me, for the business. And it went from strength to strength, and we went from their office in 9 months into our own offices in a very old stately home in serviced offices, which was very nice. And then we moved into a purpose-built place, and we stayed there. And in total, that business lasted for 13 years. So it was really good.
Fantastic. I suppose in the last sort of 3 to 4 minutes that I've got, believe it or not, that's how quick this interview goes. Talk about where you've moved to, because you're in Germany now. So talk about what you're doing, and because it's moving on from where you had knowledge and skills from the past.
Absolutely. So I flip-flopped in Germany from client side to agency roles, and realized once more that actually my destiny is going to be shaped by myself and my new business partner, who's German, Claudia. And we've set up a business called letsrocc, which is, as you rightly said earlier, the world's first anti-agency.
Tell me, what is an anti-agency?
So an anti-agency, anti sounds very negative for a start, but it's not meant to be. Anti-agency is not anti-agencies. It's anti-agency policies that we've both seen over these last 20-something years, of a lack of transparency, not meeting customer expectations, and not focusing on ROI, just to name 3. There are more, but there are a lot of agencies out there that do good work, and we wouldn't want to decry them. And in fact, we would collaborate with agencies, but an awful lot of them don't meet the mark.
Yeah, so they like spending your money but without giving you anything really.
Exactly that.
I think we all run into those from time to time.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, I guess we do.
Yeah. So what next for you? We've about 2 minutes to go. What next for you in Let's Rock? And
yes, so we've started the business slowly. We're burning our own money at the moment, which is painful. We've got, certainly for me, I've got 11,000 followers on LinkedIn. We're concentrating on the Irish market, the American market, and the German market for obvious reasons. And we're looking to make a difference. So it's a combination of creating strategies and tactics that work for digital marketing, but also educating people inside companies and teaching them using our skills how to grow their business through marketing internally, and hopefully leaving a legacy, which is they can have some form of independence from their agency, or at least they know which questions to ask their agency when they arise.
Where can people find out more about you?
Well, the website is www.letsrocc.com.
That's LETSROCC, isn't it?
It is, yeah. CC for Chris and Claudia.
Yeah. .com. Okay, people can find out. And I suppose in about the minute I've left,
yep,
give me 1 minute on chat AI and all of that. there you go. I knew I'd put you on the
There's no challenge there. Well, chat AI, certainly if we're talking about chat GPT, which most people are familiar with now, it's been going for 6 months. It uses neurolingual programming, so it learns as it goes. It's kind of Terminator-ish. And the idea is that it will help you to either create content or come up with interesting stories, or ultimately solve your problems. And they could be coding. In my case, I've used it for coding problems.
Fantastic. Well, what a great way to finish the show. I knew I'd put you on the spot with that one. Thanks, Chris Wheeler, for coming into the You and Your Business studio. Thanks also to Sam on Sound. The podcast of today's show will be available on dublincityfm.ie from tomorrow. Thank you for your company. And please remember to join me, Alec Drew, again next week at the same time, 1 o'clock, right here on 103.2 Dublin City FM for another edition of You and Your Business.